What's going on? Alex here, and today I'm going to talk about two questions that you should always ask yourself before starting a business. The first question is what you're providing a want or a need? There are some things that we need in life, so we're going to pay for them regardless of how the economy is doing, regardless of what's going on in our life, and they're essential to life. So medical services, for example, right? When you're sick, you go to the doctor, right? You don't sit there and say, well, what are the costs? What are the benefits, right? You just go and you do it, all right? Another example is you need a car. So you buy a car, right? And you need transportation. There's a necessity to get from A to B. Maybe you need to commute to work. So in that case, you get a car. Another thing is utility bills, right? So we pay to have the electricity on, we pay for the water, we pay for the gas. We don't sit there and every month we debate on whether or not I should spend money for this thing and what benefit does it give me versus the cost. We're pretty much in a situation where there are some things in life that we're just going to pay for. Rent is one of them. So if we're renting a place, we've got to have shelter. That's not really something we think about. And when you're starting a business, having a business where you provide a need for somebody, that's going to, over time, provide you more stability in times that are good versus times that are bad, right? It's going to compress the difference between how you're doing when everything's fantastic versus when everything's going not as well as you planned. And from that respect, if you identify what it is that people need, then they don't have to think about getting that product or getting that service from you. This is why companies like Procter & Gamble are worth billions and billions of dollars, is because most of the products that we use, as soon as we get out of bed, they own. And a lot of those are needs unless you want to walk around, not having your teeth brushed or not being shaven and so forth. So when you have a want, then whenever people are in a situation where the economy is not booming or they just lost their job and so forth, they're going to look to cut your business out as an expense first, ahead of everything else that they need. So when you have that business, it's thriving, you're making money, you're selling product, maybe you have an Etsy page, or you have a business where you're a photographer, or anything that is discretionary to the point where it's a want. You have to watch out for when the economy takes a turn, because you have to be prepared for a time where your booming sales might fall off. And what do you do then? In that case, you have to ask a second question. Where's the bleeding neck? I know that sounds grim, all right? But it's an important question to consider, because quite literally, when you have a bleeding neck, you don't sit there and think, should I get this fixed? What's it going to cost me? Which doctor is most cost efficient? Let me shop around. No, you're going to go to the hospital and you're going to get your neck fixed so you don't die, okay? So in that sense, you need to identify in whatever business you're in where the bleeding neck lies. Now, a lot of food businesses have taken to this, right? Because when times are tough, we don't eat out, right? We tend to cook at home, buy groceries. We cut spending where we can, and sometimes the restaurants are the first to go, right? So food businesses, they know this and they see this coming, so they say, where's the bleeding neck? And a lot of food businesses provide catering, right? So whereas somebody's not going to say, well, we have a wedding coming up, there's going to be 100 people, let's start cooking. No, they're going to call a caterer to get the food over to the wedding, right? But they might say to themselves, well, I'm not going to eat out. We're going to eat in today. We're going to cook something to save money, all right? So in that sense, the discretionary, the want, is the restaurant part of it, right? The going to the place, sitting down, having a waiter, and so forth. But the bleeding neck there is essentially the catering part, where you're providing a service that is essential to that function. People aren't going to stop getting married in a bad economy, but they're going to need the catering, and you can provide that. Now, of course, the catering might be its own separate business to what you do. It's still in food, but it may be a separate aspect. But what it can do is insulate you from times when the economy is not doing as great as it is now. And we all know that this stuff moves in cycles, so you got to be ready. Now, in a similar fashion, let's say you have a tutoring business, right? And throughout the year, people might not be saying, hey, I need tutoring throughout the year. And certainly if they have tutoring, they may say to themselves, well, maybe times are tight right now. I don't really have too many dollars to go around. Let me cut the tutoring out. It can happen. So in those times, you have to think, how can I address the bleeding neck? Now, many people who tutor for specific exams. And when a specific exam is coming up, what's stopping you from putting together, let's say, a boot camp for that particular exam so people can sign up with you and in a very condensed period of time go through exactly the steps they need to master that particular test? Wouldn't that be great? And wouldn't that put you in a position where every year when that exam comes around, you have a boot camp ready that pretty much addresses the bleeding neck situation, but in a tutoring sense? Now, we've talked about food, we've talked about tutoring. Let me talk about my business for a second. My primary focus is financial planning. Now, financial planning is something that is viewed by people as not necessary but good to have. Now, of course, I'm biased in this respect. I think everybody needs financial planning all the time. But when you ask a person on the street whether financial planning is necessary, they might tell you, you really need it if your situation gets complicated or if you're, have significant assets and so forth. Otherwise, it's not necessary. And that's a valid viewpoint as well. So the distinction is that for me, financial planning is the want. Whether I like it or not, it is what it is. You have to be real about this stuff. Now, what I identified as the need is the tax resolution and the tax preparation. That's the bleeding neck right there, because when you have a client staring at a letter saying they owe $1.6 million to the IRS within 30 days, that's the bleeding neck that I want for them to call me and help them fix it, right? So they're not sitting there through an entire decision process saying, well, is this something I want? Is this something that I should get? No, they pick up the phone and they call. That's the bleeding neck scenario in my business. Now, similarly, the tax preparation works the same, right? People push it off and push it off and push it off, and then it's September 15th or October 15th, and you get that call saying, oh my God, I forgot, I got to do my taxes. That's the other bleeding neck, in that it comes around every year, and pretty much you have clients in the beginning of the year that want to file on time, you have clients at the end of the year that are extended, so that provides a nice base on which the financial planning is the sweetener, right? So when I get financial planning clients, it's a beautiful thing. But I can allow that want aspect of my business to be as sporadic as it needs to be, because I know I have the bleeding neck, if you will, foundation of the tax preparation and the tax resolution. So I was able to separate my business in the way that the revenue that's generated is balanced between the wants and the needs, between the bleeding neck and the additional kind of cherry on top, if you will, the topping of the financial planning that clients get every now and then, and I'm happy to provide that service, but I can tell you that definitely the majority of the revenue is coming from tax preparation and resolution, because again, that's where the bleeding neck scenario is the strongest. So I hope this is helpful. If you have a similar situation in your business where you've maximized the want and the need aspects, drop me a line in the comments. Thanks for watching. Now, to be clear, I'm not making the case that want-based businesses are better or worse than need-based businesses. I fully realize that there's multi-billion-dollar companies that only sell wants. What I'm saying is that when times are tough, the economy isn't doing as well, and when you're in a pinch, you're probably going to get rid of your Netflix subscription before you stop paying rent. And that's the distinction. You're not taking away my Netflix. I don't care about rent.